Welcome, I'm Catherine Hadro, and this is EWTN Pro-Life Weekly.
Taking it to the courts, a federal judge blocks a Texas policy that bans abortion during the coronavirus. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton joins us with his response. Saintly wisdom. Mother Teresa's former lawyer tells us what this pandemic can teach us about the elderly who regularly face isolation and loneliness. And choosing hope. A pro-life social media campaign responds to the fear stirred up by the abortion industry during this time.
Federal judges temporarily blocked efforts in Texas, Alabama, and Ohio to ban abortions during the coronavirus pandemic. These rulings came in response to lawsuits from Planned Parenthood and other abortion facilities. A growing number of states are banning all elective medical procedures, including abortion, during the pandemic. It's an effort to conserve protective medical gear, such as masks and gloves, and reserve them for COVID-19 cases. But Planned Parenthood is suing in multiple states and arguing abortion is a necessary and time-sensitive medical procedure. On Monday, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a brief in a U.S. District Court to enforce Texas's executive order on the issue. Because before the federal judge's ruling, there were reportedly abortion facilities that continue to commit abortions and use up personal protective equipment. And joining us now is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton himself. He joins us now from Dallas, Texas. Thank you for being here. First off, what does this federal judge ruling mean for Texas's abortion ban during the coronavirus pandemic?
So let me clarify, it's not actually an abortion ban, it's a ban on elective procedures, which also includes abortion. It includes orthopedic surgeries, it includes dental procedures, it includes dermatological procedures, it includes all kinds of elective procedures. They are not being singled out, they are just being treated like everybody else. So the judge's ruling merely means we're going to the Fifth Circuit, which we're not surprised. We figured either way we were going to the Fifth Circuit.
Given the federal judge's ruling on this case this week, can you clarify what are the next steps when it means going to the Fifth Circuit? What's going to happen next?
So we're appealing the district court's decision yesterday, blocking us from implementing the executive order by our Governor Greg Abbott, which has a legitimate purpose of making sure that these elective procedures stop so that people can be treated for the coronavirus and other life-threatening illnesses, and that the equipment that's needed for those procedures is saved for people that are truly in need.
And can you walk us through Texas Governor Greg Abbott's order? How was it designed to help conserve medical supplies during this pandemic?
So by targeting elective procedures, which again, across the board elective procedures, anything that is not critical to somebody's health or critical to saving their lives had to be stopped. And it was designed because these personal protection equipment are used across all types of different elective procedures. And so we're trying to conserve those because there's a shortage of them, and conserve resources like hospital beds and even the focus of doctors' times. So we're in a very unusual period of time. There's all kinds of unusual things happening, and this was something that our governor and I think other governors across the country determined would be something that could be used to save people's lives. And so we didn't want anybody treated any differently, and apparently Planned Parenthood and the abortion providers feel like they should be given an exception to how other people and other providers are being treated.
There are a lot of misconceptions going around right now on this. Abortion activists have accused states like Texas, who have these types of orders which are banning elective procedures, including abortion, during the pandemic, of targeting abortion clinics. But as you've said, these abortion facilities are not actually singled out, were they? Can you clarify that?
No, absolutely. It applies to everyone. What they are actually asking to be singled out to be treated better than everybody else during this crisis. And so potentially they could be doing elective abortions, and those resources could otherwise be used to save somebody's life, somebody that has coronavirus or who has some other life-threatening illness. And so they're basically saying we want to continue making our money. We want to continue to provide abortions electively at the expense of potentially life-saving treatment for other people. That, to me, is just wrong.
Planned Parenthood's acting president has called the Texas order an exploitation of a crisis. What do you make of that depiction?
Those are just words. He or she can read the words of the executive order. They do not target any particular provider. They treat everyone the same. And Planned Parenthood is hiding under these words and asking basically that they be treated, that they have some special treatment and potentially use resources that otherwise could be used to save somebody's life.
Do you have any words you want to share with other attorney generals in other states who may be considering similar action as Texas?
I would encourage them to go forward with this. It's an appropriate use of state government action. They would have to obviously operate under their own laws and statutes, but if their law allows for this, and the governor has put down an executive order similar to ours, I would encourage them to go forward. I think in the end we're going to be successful because I think in the end we're right, and that these governors have a right to do what they need to do to save people's lives.
Well, we will continue to monitor this case. Thank you so much for joining us, and please stay safe. Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
For Pro-Life Reaction and Analysis, we're joined now by Mallory Quigley. She's the Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List and joins us via Skype. First off, Mallory, what is your message to Planned Parenthood right now as they continue to challenge these state bans during the coronavirus pandemic?
Planned Parenthood is the ones that are trying to capitalize on this crisis, Catherine. They are seeking every opportunity they can to expand the access of abortion on demand and to especially push chemical abortion, which is really troubling during this time because it could potentially result in women ending up in the hospital at a time when our healthcare system is already overburdened. Mm-hmm. So we just want them to do what the Attorney General Paxton said, and comply with this order, which isn't targeting them. It's going after all people who are providing elective surgeries. I mean, if dentists and other medical professionals can hit pause on their operations for now so that we can rally as a nation around this pandemic and the people that are on the front lines fighting it, then we ought to do so. And abortion isn't healthcare. It's certainly not essential healthcare.
Mallory, in this Texas lawsuit, Planned Parenthood claims they don't use much personal protective equipment. But then some Planned Parenthood facilities are asking for donations for masks and hand sanitizer and other materials for them to use. What is going on here?
Right. Yeah, well, I think this is the abortion industry lying through their teeth, trying to play both sides. First off, if they're not using personal protective equipment, that doesn't speak very well to what they think of their employees and considering their safety. And then, Planned Parenthood in Los Angeles, Planned Parenthood Keystone in Pennsylvania, sending out these emails begging for donations of gloves and masks. Listen, Catherine, we've talked about this before. I've told you, my sister, she's a nurse here in the Washington, D.C. area, and she's told me about the real shortage that exists in our nation's hospitals for basic equipment like masks and gloves. Mm-hmm. And she's got to carry her N95 mask around with her at all times because when she responds to an emergency happening elsewhere across the hospital, she's on the stat and the code teams, there might not be personal protective equipment there for her where she's going. So this is a really troubling time, and Planned Parenthood needs to play their part and chip into this shortage of PPE that we're facing as a country.
Well, your sister and all healthcare workers are the heroes right now. And Mallory, I want to clarify something while I have you. In the Texas executive order that's being challenged, Texas banned, quote, any type of abortion that is not medically necessary to preserve the life or health of the mother. But Mallory, can you clarify, abortion is never medically necessary?
Right. Yeah. More than 1,000 medical professionals, including I think half of that are obstetricians and gynecologists. And the Dublin Declaration said that abortion is never medically necessary. There is a very distinct difference between the intentional taking of a human life and life-saving care for a mother that may result as a secondary effect the death of her unborn child, which of course is very tragic, but there's a very distinct difference. But the procedure, the abortion procedure, is never medically necessary.
Just real quick, Mallory, in addition to Texas, where else are we seeing governors taking similar action here?
Yeah, it's really been encouraging to see pro-life governors stepping up in Ohio and Texas, Tennessee, Iowa, Louisiana. It's been a bipartisan effort on the part of governors who are saying we need to protect the most vulnerable. That includes not only, obviously, the unborn and the people who are suffering from coronavirus and those that are taking care of them and putting in orders like this.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and please continue to stay safe. Mallory Quigley, Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List.
Thanks, Catherine.
As the nation and the world fight the coronavirus pandemic, several states have taken steps to halt non-essential medical procedures. This is to conserve protective medical supplies like masks and gloves for healthcare professionals working with COVID-19 patients. Some pro-life governors have made clear these non-essential procedures include abortion. This is vital leadership to prevent medical supplies from being wasted on life-ending procedures. We want to thank these governors who are working to preserve life and keep all Americans safe and healthy. And that brings us to this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com to sign the petition to thank pro-life governors who have taken strong action to stop abortions in their state during the coronavirus pandemic. Once you get to our website and type in your information, you can sign our petition. We will then pass this petition along to the governor's offices. Again, we need to thank these pro-life governors for being defenders of life during the coronavirus pandemic. Sign our petition by going to prolifeweekly.com. St. Teresa of Calcutta's former lawyer says the isolation and loneliness caused by the coronavirus pandemic is a feeling that is all too common for our elderly population. Jim Toohey, who served as legal counsel to Mother Teresa for 12 years, wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post last week titled, "Feeling Isolated by Distancing? That's how many of the elderly go through life." Toohey writes, quote, "If you are a little depressed after spending a few days at home in isolation while you ride out the coronavirus crisis, you now know how millions of elderly people across the United States feel every day. For them, social distancing is a way of life. So many have no visitors, nothing to look forward to, and no means to buffer any new financial hardships." Joining us now via Skype is Jim Toohey himself. In addition to being Mother Teresa's former lawyer, Jim Toohey is also founder and CEO of Aging with Dignity. Jim, thank you for addressing this important issue. First off, can you put into context for us what are the top statistics regarding elderly isolation?
Well, I mean, when you look at the huge populations that live in nursing homes, we got a couple million senior citizens that live in nursing homes and ALFs. Great number of them, usually over half of those residents, have no regular visitors. We see very high suicide rates among men 75 and older. The single highest rate of suicide is with that group. People often don't realize in our fast-paced, ever-young society, we've systematically pushed our elders to the margins of life. And so while we're social distancing right now and we're shut in our homes, for a lot of these millions of Americans, this is how they've been living around year to year.
You write powerfully about Mother Teresa's words on this issue. Can you share with our viewers what she had to say about social isolation?
Well, she was asked, near the end of her life, well, what's the worst disease you've ever seen? Is it leprosy or is it AIDS? And she said, no, it was loneliness. And she was always combating that terrible disease, that feeling an individual has of being unloved, unwanted, unwelcome, the ones that have no one to love them. That's why when she would reach out for the lepers, when she was taking care of those that had been discarded in rubbish bins and bringing those little children into her orphanages, she recognized that that great need that individual had was to love and to be loved. And our elders are craving that same affection from us.
You write there may be a temptation to blame our country's most vulnerable for the adverse consequences we're seeing right now in the wake of the coronavirus, from businesses closing to massive layoffs. Can you expand on what you mean by that, and what are you cautioning against?
What I'm worried about, Catherine, is the real danger that once the coronavirus moves on and all America is now taking stock of the economic damage that's been done, layoffs, mortgages foreclosed on, businesses shuttered, they're going to start saying, wait a minute, we suffered all of this just because of these elderly people we wanted to keep alive. There could be a backlash. We've already seen some of that with that, some of the social media that's been critical of elders. And so I worry about that because, yes, we're focusing now on the numbers in New York City and elsewhere, but there's going to be a staggering awakening, I think, when we start to look at the economic consequences. We've never in our lifetimes lived through unemployment numbers like we're about to see, and I just don't want to see our elders blamed for this. By God's grace, their life, it's no different than yours or mine. They're every bit as valuable or precious. Just because they're old doesn't make them less valuable.
Amen.
And I worry about that backlash, and we need to prepare for that.
Jim, as I mentioned, you founded Aging with Dignity with the goal to honor the God-given human dignity of the most vulnerable among us. Can you tell our viewers about Aging with Dignity and why its mission is really important right now?
Well, I founded it 25 years ago in Tallahassee, Florida, to promote and safeguard human dignity in the face of the threat of euthanasia, because I worry that the right to die is a right that the poor will get. But rather than getting in a shouting match between people who want to artificially prolong life in the face of death with those that want to assisted suicide laws governing, let's find a way to help patients have choice, maintain their dignity. So that's why I created the 5 Wishes document that's now in 35 million American homes. And it's in 29 languages. And Aging with Dignity's had a huge impact on this discussion because we want to avoid the trap of euthanasia. And we also want to help patients have their dignity and their choice respected at the end of life. And so that's why 5 Wishes has been so popular.
Incredible. For those of us who have older loved ones, we cannot physically visit with them right now. So how can we show them we love them and show our solidarity?
Well, of course, there's a number of things we can do by maintaining contact with them during the time we can hold them and hug them and hold their hands and visit them. So to just maintain that realization that they're thought of, that they're remembered, that their lives matter. But it's also important for us to have discussions about how they want to be cared for when they're seriously ill. They may not get the coronavirus, but they're going to reach a day when they're approaching the end of their lives to know what their wishes, how they want to be treated, how they want their loved ones to remember them. The Archdiocese of Miami, for example, Archbishop Wensky gives 5 wishes to all of his employees. Sister Elizabeth Worley, all of them have been very important in passing these out. And now, of course, we've got thousands, tens of thousands of organizations distributing 5 Wishes to help facilitate these conversations so that you can be there for your loved ones when they need you the most.
Such a powerful reminder. And I mean, this whole conversation and this pandemic really is, I think, emphasizing the preciousness of every human life.
It sure is. You're absolutely right that we're now aware that we should be taking steps to safeguard the lives of our elderly and protect them. And when the coronavirus leaves, that disease of loneliness is still going to linger. I'm hoping that we take a time now to resolve that when the disease moves on, we go over to these shut-ins, the people up the street, family members that we aren't maintaining contact with that are in their 80s. I mean, we've got half of the population, 85 and older, has Alzheimer's. The caregivers for them are exhausted. The church should be unleashed with these acts of mercy and love to affirm these lives and to say, God loves you, we do too.
Absolutely. I pray we do the same after that. Jim Toohey, founder and CEO of Aging with Dignity, thank you.
Thank you for having me on your show. You're wonderful.
Coming up, we highlight a pro-life social media initiative. Hear how pro-lifers are helping women to choose hope amidst this coronavirus pandemic. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Hadro. The New York Times editorial board is calling for abortion to be made more available during the coronavirus pandemic. That is this week's Speak Out segment. Governors across the United States are calling for a halt on abortions to conserve protective medical gear for COVID-19 patients. It's part of a ban on non-essential procedures, and it is common sense. But in an opinion column released last week, the New York Times editorial board says that idea is, quote, obvious nonsense and an obvious attempt to put abortion out of reach for those who need it. The editorial board then took it a step further. Not only did they tout pro-abortion talking points, the New York Times then also called for extreme abortion policies, like making abortion pills available by mail and for public funding of the procedure. Take a look at this. The editorial board wrote, quote, with so much about the future uncertain for countless Americans, it's more important than ever that everyone has control over their reproductive choices, at least. We've seen pro-abortion media bias from the New York Times before, but this is a new extreme, as America's flagship newspaper is proving itself to be a full-on abortion activist now, calling for sweeping policy changes. This is irresponsible journalism, especially in the time of a global crisis. Despite accusing pro-life governors of exploiting the pandemic, it's the New York Times editorial board using the crisis to try and enact pro-abortion policy goals. Pro-abortion activists have long advocated for the same policy goals, from repealing the Hyde Amendment to sending dangerous abortion-inducing drugs through the mail. But these steps would not save lives amid this pandemic. In fact, they would only end more. While pro-abortion groups are stirring up fear and panic for pregnant moms, pro-lifers continue to offer truth and hope. For this week's Pro-Life Focus, we want to spotlight a social media initiative doing just that. Last week, the pro-life group, the Susan B. Anthony List, led a social media blitz by posting and sharing a series of tweets with the hashtag #ChooseHope. The purpose was to counter false abortion lobby claims that are popping up amidst the coronavirus. The Twitter campaign also promoted the new website, sbalist.org/coronavirus, to equip pro-lifers with the truth about abortion during this pandemic. Here's a look at one Choose Hope tweet from the social media blitz. Pro-life speaker Brian Kemper writes, food essential, water essential, shelter essential, the right to kill your own child via abortion non-essential. Let's send those medical supplies to doctors saving lives, not doctors taking lives. Hashtag #ChooseHope. Lawmakers also jumped in on the social media campaign. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn tweeted, let's not exploit COVID-19 as an excuse to have big abortion expand its reach. Hashtag #ChooseHope. Mississippi Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith wrote this message. With all the concerns regarding coronavirus, the good news is pregnant mothers don't appear to be at higher risk for coronavirus. Mothers infected with COVID-19 deliver live, healthy babies. Hashtag #ChooseHope. And here's this hopeful truth in a tweet from the Christ Medicus Foundation. Study: no maternal deaths among 38 pregnant women, including some with underlying conditions infected with COVID-19. Hashtag #ChooseHope. This campaign is so inspiring because it equips expectant mothers with the good news about bringing life into the world during this time, instead of manipulating their emotions during a crisis. The Choose Hope campaign equips people with the truth about pregnancy and the virus, and it also reflects the reality of the pro-life movement. We are a movement built on hope and not despair, on truth and not on lies. Let us all continue to choose hope every single day. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I want to give a quick programming note. We will not have a new show next week because it is Holy Week, and there will be special Holy Week programming to honor and glorify our Lord. Please know I'm praying for you all to be safe and healthy during this time, and praying that you all have a glorious Easter, especially after this long Lent we are all experiencing. And until our next show, you can always reach me online. We'd love to hear from you during this time. If you have an idea, a question, or a comment, let's connect. Find us on social media at EWTN Pro-Life, or you can send an email to prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. Until next time, remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.